Are you serious? They've closed the Temple Mount to anyone that's not a Muslim. All Jews, all Christians, the Temple Mount is blocked off. Only Muslims allowed. What? Hang on. Hold up. Wait a minute. Oh, folks. Now, during this peace process that's going into now its third full day in Washington, D.C., and there'll be some breaks, and then they'll get back together again. It's a 9-month process. You're going to see a lot of different tension, and it's going to be very, very intense. Well, here's the deal. I want to thank Dave Shadow and Troy of North Carolina for getting this information to me. But here's the deal. The Israeli government has surrendered the Temple Mount. I repeat, the Israeli government has surrendered the Temple Mount. Also, I just received an email from Brother Joe of Jerusalem. Here's what's going on. And I met with Brother Joe in Jerusalem when I was in Jerusalem back in May. And I can tell you, he's passionate. He's a Messianic Jew, and he's passionate about the land of Israel and Jesus Christ as the Messiah. But at the same time, as a Messianic Jew, he understands the importance of the land of Israel being a Jewish state and how it relates to biblical prophecy. Now listen to this. The Israeli government, in an unprecedented move, police yesterday on July 31st, 2013, informed the Jewish groups that the Temple Mount will be closed to all non-Muslims until at least the end of Ramadan on the 11th of August. Now my understanding is Ramadan ends on the 7th of August, but maybe there's a few more extra days. I'm not sure about that. Okay. But the announcement has provoked renewed anger over anti-Jewish discrimination on the Temple Mount and sparked calls for activists for a mass protest on the 7th of August. What? Oh, no, that's going to be bad. That's next Wednesday. Oh, that could be dangerous. At the start of the Hebrew month of Elul. Now, the Temple Mount activists had complained that for the past 3 days, the Temple Mount, the holiest place in Judaism, remained inexplicitly closed to non-Muslim visitors. The only explanation offered was a bland sign which simply read, "Today, the Temple Mount will be closed to visitors." Now, you know, that happened to me when I was in there in May, and I was there during the Feast of Pentecost, and I wanted to go up on the Temple Mount. 2 different days I went, it said it's closed to visitors. I couldn't go up there. And but it was not apparently closed to all the Jewish worshipers, just the tourists. I think there were some tensions. All right, so those restrictions did not, however, apply to Muslim visitors. It says Temple Mount's closed to all visitors, but not the Muslim visitors, who continue to receive unrestricted access. So on Wednesday, Police Commander Britton finally informed the representatives of the Organization of Temple Movements, an umbrella of various Temple Mount groups, that the sign would remain up for at least another 2 weeks, until after the Muslim festival and the end of Ramadan. Since the beginning of Ramadan, Islamists have upped their campaign to prevent Jews from setting foot on the Temple Mount, let alone praying there. So on the eve of the 9th of Av, the Jewish day of mourning over the destruction of the holy temples, a group of Jews, including Deputy Foreign Minister, were driven off the Temple Mount by a mob of Muslim extremists. So, folks, this is getting really ugly up there. And this Temple Mount thing, you're going to see the borders, how they're carved out for a new state, a 2-state solution, a new state called Palestine, or maybe it'd be called New Palestine. I'm only saying that because there was an earthquake on the day they started the negotiations in Washington, D.C. The first day they sat down together, an earthquake hit New Palestine, Mexico. God struck a small spot in Mexico named New Palestine. which is controlled by 37 families of ancestors of the Mayan Indians. Just throw that out there for you. A 5.4 earthquake. But the Temple Mount, you're going to see the borders. Where are the borders? Pre-67? No. Current borders they are now? No. Maybe 1949 green zone, somewhere in the middle? Probably. But that would mean 80% of Judea and Samaria would be under Palestinian rule. Now, get this. But the two biggest points would be the borders and the Temple Mount. Israel wants to build the temple. And I think it's part of the agreement. And you're going to see some pushing and shoving. And some of these religious groups, some of the Jewish groups are not going to trust how the negotiations are going. They're going to demand that Benjamin Netanyahu does not give up their Temple Mount in the negotiations. I mean, this is huge. So, also Dave Shadow sent this to me, that the Palestinian state will have most of Judea and Samaria, according to the negotiations that are going on. And as I said, it will be about 80% of it. So it's getting very intense up there. And as Brother Joe, Jerusalem Joe, is being focused on watch what's going on. He doesn't live far from there. And I would like for him to keep an eye on what's happening as it continues to get more and more and more intense. For instance, Muslims are very angry. He sent this to me and they're outraged over a Jewish history. Always angry, always agitating over the truth, but always at war. The Dome of the Rock was, and at one time, a broken down, decaying old relic. Until the 20th century, it was of no import. It was of no longer use as a place of worship. When the calls for a Jewish state were reverberating throughout the world, the genocidal leaders of the Muslim world, and who were Hitler's partner, by the way, the Mufti of Jerusalem realized that he had created a territorial fiction in order to deny the Jewish people their holiest site. And so they created this mosque, which has been up there, and it was very decayed, it was very dilapidated. But get this, now it's the Dome of the Rock. Now get this. There was a virtual, someone took and made a virtual third temple picture of it by overlaying it onto Temple Mount as the new third temple would look. And the Muslims are very angry about this picture. Now, I have showed it before, and it's very fascinating. It can fit. Actually, Benjamin Netanyahu has blueprints of the third temple that could be built on the Temple Mount and would not interfere with the Dome of the Rock, as long as there's no outer court. Well, let me tell you what it says in the book of Revelation, the 11th chapter. And John, in a prophecy, the Holy Spirit of God, the Lord spoke to the Apostle John, or we know him as John the Revelator, and said these words to him in Revelation chapter 11. He said, "And there was given me a reed like unto a rod, and the angel stood, saying, Rise, and measure the temple of God, and the altar, and them that worship therein. But the court which is without the temple, leave it out, and measure it not, for it is given unto the Gentiles, and the holy city shall they tread under foot 42 months, or 3.5 years. There will be occupation in Jerusalem by the Gentiles." Now, the Gentiles, of course, could mean anyone that's not Jewish, of course, but obviously Muslims. So what's going to happen, and Christians, so what you're going to have here is a temple will be built. The third temple is a modified temple, not as big as King Solomon's, not built the same way as King Herod's temple. Solomon's temple was destroyed in 586 BC by the Babylonian Empire, and Herod's temple was destroyed in 70 AD, as predicted by Jesus Christ, I should say, as prophesied by Jesus Christ, in 70 AD by the Roman Empire. This third temple that Benjamin Netanyahu already has planned, I've seen the blueprints, it is a modified, condensed temple that can fit on the Temple Mount and not interfere with the Dome of the Rock. So, and then there's a big opening in between the two where the Gentiles, of course, or Christians can come up there and walk around. So so there won't be no outer court. So there won't be a brazen altar. There will be no sacrificing up there. But the Jews will be able to worship in their temple. And Muslims will be able to go to their Dome of the Rock mosque. And Christians will be allowed to walk around in the court. Because it's prophesied it's going to happen. Now, there's going to be some tension, though. So, watch and see during the negotiations between Benjamin Netanyahu and Abbas of the Palestinian Authority. The borders are going to be a sticking point, and the Temple Mount. These are the two key factors. And Israel will give up more land if they can have the temple. And the money is big that America and other nations are willing to throw in a new state of Palestine. America's willing to give $4 billion. And there's other people. We've heard John F. Kerry talk about that already. So watch the covenant of Daniel 9:27. Certainly will be confirmed with many people, including 22 nations of the Arab League and 37 nations, 22 nations of the Arab League and 35 Muslim nations, plus America and many other nations. So it's going to be very fascinating to see how it comes to power. But during the process, you're going to have days just like this. Next Wednesday, watch out. Because if the Jews are coming to protest and the Muslims are still in Ramadan for 2 more days, it could get ugly up there. It could get ugly. And while that's going on, they're still negotiating peace. Because the religious factions, radicals on both Jewish radicals, there is Jewish radicals, just like there's Christian radicals. And of course the radicals of Islam, which is a lot. So you're going to see some tension as this thing develops. I'll be right back with more information. Stay with us. Are you serious? Give your life to Jesus Christ, because folks, what I'm sharing with you today is you're living in biblical times, apocalyptic times, prophetic times, the last day or the end